Hey guys, it's Brent. I'm back with another My Hero video. Today I'm going to do a showcase for Shota Aizawa. Aizawa is a premium unit, but a lot of people got him at the event when we started. Otherwise, his banners usually run for 1 week, which is unique. Um, but yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's probably one of my favorite characters to play as in PvP. Um, kind of lackluster in PvE, in my opinion, but we'll go over all of that going forward. Alright, so that being said, let's take a look at Aizawa. So I only have him at S, but yeah, let's look at his skills. Aizawa is a very interesting character to play because all of his skills are really fluid. Here's his combo, 3-hit combo, or under ambush mode, he can attack up to 6 times. So let me explain the modes real quick. So he has 3 different combat styles: sneak, counter, and ambush. Sneak lets him be invisible. It also lets him teleport to his enemies. But an attack in sneak switches him immediately to counter. In counter, I mean, it's what it sounds like. If he gets attacked, he can immediately counter. That does have a 15-second cooldown. In ambush, this is his kind of heavy hitting damage dealing mode. His chain attack goes up to 6 times now. It also fills up his skill bar when he lands normal attacks, which lets him use Befall, which is his quirk skill. So if you use it when the bar isn't full, it's this erasure, which isn't really good. You want to use it when the bar's full, to be honest. He also has 2 different W and E skills depending on his distance. So this doesn't depend on style, it's just how far he is from his enemy. In any of his 3 modes, he can use either variation. Caltrops does more damage than Taijutsu usually, and inflicts bleed, so I tend to prefer Caltrops, but it lays spikes on the floor, and that's a trap that, is easily avoidable. You kind of have to lead enemies into it. In PvP, it takes a little bit more skill. And then remote capture is a good skill. This works in conjunction with the caltrops because you can pull people in. But you can also root enemies with hyper armor and deal a lot of damage. So that's a useful skill. And then this is just a charge strike is just another, combo like taijutsu. But the cool thing about this one is this part. If the 3rd attack hits, the style will switch to Q ambush, whether you're in, sneak or counter, but really it switches to counter the second you use it, because using any skill in sneak will trigger counter mode. So yeah, and we can look at his mechanism intro. So that, this is kind of a lot of words here, but it's talking about his perfect snare, which is that. I'll show you in a minute. And kind of building that up is the main strategy. And here we talk about combat styles. Q lets you teleport. So yeah, I'm not going to read all of this. We'll go through it when we look at his actual gameplay. So Aizawa's A skill is increasing ambush attack. That is, again, ambush is where he deals most damage. bleed deals extra damage. This is really nice. When you get him to double S, you can trigger retreat with counter. Honestly, I don't think this skill is that great, but double S is useful for his talent tree. Here, so this is really good for when you're fighting one enemy, PvP modes, or, well, it's Apex, really. Or if you're fighting a boss or something. When combos are maintained, attack increases for every second up to 60 times. So this is kind of similar to Ida, right? Maintaining combos to keep damage high. When releasing Befall while in the air, increases damage. When landing and releasing the Strangle increases damage. So, you know, honestly, these skills don't really seem to be game-breaking for him. Having him at S, he's useful for where he's going to be useful. That's what I'll say. His Onslaught, his ultimate, doesn't do too much, but I think it can be used to group. But it's not very damaging. Okay, so before I get into those skills, we're going to run through some other things for him. We'll take a look at his chip layout. You know, nothing too earth-shattering here, right? His 6-star chips are the best. With Aizawa, you really want to focus on damage, crit, penetration. Kind of the same for everyone, right? Usually you want to be focusing offensive stats, but crit and penetration are pretty important for him. All right, now his talent tree. This is an interesting one, because when you're at S, honestly, it's a pretty tough decision. I do think the left is a really important path, right? So under sneak style, crit rate and crit damage increase every 3 seconds. And then this guy essentially increases crit damage when you hit with W. But also hitting enemies who are bleeding and have hyper armor increases your damage a lot. This makes Aizawa really useful against bosses, you know, who have hyper armor frequently. For your other two paths, the top right, you have a counterattack path. So under counter, the damage of counterattack launched after retreat increases by 20% and adds 2 stacks of bleed. And then this one, under Q, counter, triggering kill, perfect snare, strangle, increases damage by 36%. If the enemy's HP is lower than 30%, it increases it by 90%. If perfect snare, strangle fails, damage only increases by 18%. The bottom path, this guy ups his ambush damage. Basically, he adds stacks of sharpness up to 60 stacks, and he gets a 1.5% times sharpness stacks. So that can add up pretty quickly. This final skill on his track is essentially when the counterattack is triggered, the cooldown time of W and E go down, and enemies within assault range are inflicted with another stack of bleed. So these are both really useful tracks. I've heard that the top helps you focus on PvP and the bottom PvE. That makes sense. You know, you're really buffing up counter on the top and damage from ambush on the bottom, but also most PvP modes, or maybe not most, but Arena doesn't factor this in. I went ahead and picked the top myself just because I like the counter strategy, but I do honestly think that this charge up, this ambush charge up, makes the bottom path better. So it's up to you. They're both still very useful, and Aizawa's main use is in arena, where these don't really apply. So it really just depends on which stance you like to fight in. I would suggest training with him a bit and seeing, which one's better for you. Right. So if I have to suggest a path, I would say bottom left and bottom right, even though that's not the one I suggest or I selected myself. I really do like this ambush charge up after playing him for a while. I just don't use him enough to justify spending hero coins to reset it to myself. So for Aizawa, we want to focus on crit rate. Kendo's a good budget card. Ragdoll is good for a tight budget, but if you keep playing, you should be getting plenty of 5-star cards to throw on him. He also deals a lot of his damage with his basic attacks, so Ectoplasm is good, and Tape Man is good as well because he uses a lot of special skills. Really, Aizawa just kind of attacks a lot, so using his special skills and then triggering his normal attack damage can really help. When you start getting into 6-star cards for him, Cold Shot and Game Start, Penetration, and Crit Rate, those are going to be huge for him. Of course, his cards are also good. This is his 12% damage increase, and this one increases damage dealt to enemies with bleed by 12%. I don't think, honestly, that these are the most important, just because increasing the damage done to enemies with bleed or just increasing total damage, he might be the only character that I think his flat damage increase is better, but he's not somebody I would pull for his exclusive cards since they are so rare. Those are some cards you want to put on him. Focus on crit and penetration, and you should be fine. Alright, and now we are in training. We're going to take a look at Aizawa's skills. I'll just show all of them, then I'll give you a quick rundown of my favorite damage rotation. This doesn't mean it is the best, it's just what I use. So, first and foremost, as you can see, I'm kind of becoming invisible periodically. That's what sneak mode is good for. It makes him kind of hard to target while he's running around. So any attack will switch me into counter mode. Q, this skill, also manually switches, but there's no real need to waste it to manually switch out of here. The main draw of this mode is any attack teleports to his enemy. So that's really good for a couple of these, right? And a lot just happened, but I'll kind of run down it again. So when you're in sneak, my favorite thing to do is to use those caltrops, because he shows up behind them and drops them. Then when you're close, you use E. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Close W is Taijutsu. And far E, I believe you can't do it in sneak mode because you teleport to close range, but that's far E.
You can't be a pro if you only have one trick.
Okay, so those are his skills. And then I guess the other important thing to note is, let's show you how the counter works. You can see the knife is glowing there. When he attacks me, I automatically dodge, and then I have to push to counter. But when the knife is faded out, I'll just get hit.
You can't be a pro
and then I fill up this bar, use the quirk skill, and I get to aim. I'm invincible while I'm doing this. Aim, and get him. I'll go ahead and use unlimited power just to show you his R skill. And those are his skills. So to quickly cover my favorite damage rotation here is Sneak, W to drop some caltrops, E, land the third hit, that switches me to ambush, land 2 ambush combos. You have to land the full combo, or you have to just keep attacking until that gets full. Quirk special, and hit them. Obviously, that doesn't work perfectly every time, and you can also mix in his skills to make the combos a little longer. So he's a very fluid character. His damage rotation changes frequently, and if you have that talent that increases sharpness, you're going to want to be switching styles relatively frequently so that you can get the sharpness bonus. Every 15 seconds your counter comes back, so you can use that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I know that he's a very open-ended character, but you know, my rotation is useful for me. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it really is kind of just using W and E as they recharge to get combos and to just keep doing normal attacks until you can use your quirk. Okay, so to quickly cover Aizawa's usefulness in various modes, agency assessment, honestly, I don't find him particularly useful. That said, mine is only rank S. I could see him kind of changing the game, fighting bosses, dealing a lot of damage at later ranks, but I do think that there are better characters for agency assessment, so I wouldn't recommend investing in him for that purpose, right? In the timed events, again, there are just better characters to use in those, and since Aizawa is premium, I don't recommend pulling him for those purposes either. Versus mode, Warzone, and Super Co-op, I talk about those together. I don't have him on any of my teams. I know that people did when when there weren't that many characters. But I think he's kind of been outpaced at this point. The AI, it's a lot to ask of the AI to use all of his stance shifting and things like that. So yeah, I really just don't think that... Okay, let me say this. If he's the best you've got, I think that he can be useful. I've seen him on some good teams, but I don't think that he's worth pulling if what you're looking for is a character for those modes, because there are many others that are better. So that's kind of trashing on Aizawa and all of his different modes, but where he truly shines is in PvP. Arena, Apex as well, but Apex is a whole different ballgame. But yeah, in Arena, he's a lot of fun to play as. My general request to anybody watching this is, if you're gonna play Arena, try to play fair. Aizawa can be one of the worst characters to fight because he can drop some caltrops and then just try to pull you into him, and that's kind of his whole thing, and he'll run in circles, until the caltrops recharge, and then drop more, and then do rinse and repeat. I don't know, that's just not fun to fight for me. It's not fun to play for me either. So that's why I lean more on counter and ambush. So, like right now, I'm in counter stance, and that's simply because I haven't shifted and I haven't landed this combo like I wanted to, because I was ranting about something else. But yeah, so counter is great to, you know, counter one attack, but really, as soon as I do that, I usually try to switch. Um, that was a clever combo, Kirishima. Now, ideally, you can land the E and that will shift for you. If you can't, it's okay to hard shift.
You ready? You can't be a pro if you only have one trick. Don't let your guard die back. You ready? You can't be a pro if you only have one trick. It's over. You ready? You can't be a pro if you only have one trick.
So that's pretty much it for Aizawa, guys. That leaves the question of, should I pull for Aizawa and should I pull for his cards? I usually say don't pull for cards, right? Like, even if you get free pulls, I would save those for the characters who really need the cards to be useful. That goes double in my opinion for Aizawa. I really just don't think his cards are particularly important. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. As for pulling the character, I would say, honestly, only pull him if you really want to play him. There are other characters who can fill the niche of PvP, and you know, those characters also have some other things that they're good at. So I think you're gonna want, I don't know, I would say for a free-to-play player, you know, unless you love Aizawa, he's gonna be lower list. Now, if you already have him, you know, he's worth investing in, at least for the PvP, just to have fun with him, to play around, because he is a lot of fun, and he's really good in certain circumstances. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Aizawa. I hope that is helpful to you guys. Please let me know if you have any questions or, you know, anything like that. Likes, comments, subscribes are always appreciated, and I'll be putting the link to my Discord in the description. You know, that way you can ask questions there too, or we can just talk about the game. So I look forward to either hearing from you on there or talking to you next time. Thanks, guys.